Welcome to Transform Perspective with Kyrah. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. It is a little bit different, okay? Because as you can tell, if you're watching on YouTube, I don't know if you can see, but yeah, wearing a knee brace. It's a long story. Not a story that I really want to get into, but I do want to get into this episode. Big thanks for tuning in. And also don't forget to subscribe because the goal is still 1,000 subscribers. And I'm really excited about building a community. If you haven't checked out my Etsy shop, feel free to do so. I have a digital journal and a physical journal called Guided Mind. It is a 3-part self-reflection guided journal. So if you've been looking to work on yourself, learning about yourself, your mental, spiritual, and emotional well-being, check it out. It's a great way to learn about you, to take out time for yourself and, some good old self-care. Today I'm talking about mindful communication in relationships. Now, when I'm talking about relationships, I'm not just talking about romance, I'm also talking about family and friends and co-workers and any relationship with any other human beings. Communication is key. We hear it often. We always hear communication is key. I think also understanding one another is big because you could be communicating with somebody and not even understand what they mean, because there's things that you have to, be aware of and address when it comes to communication. And in order to, thrive in our relationships with one another, we do need to communicate and have understanding. And I think when it comes to communication, it's learning about yourself first, and then also holding space to learn about other people because we communicate differently, Some people are very outgoing and extroverts. Some people are introverts. Some people have different trauma and different things that they've been through that have shaped their personality and, how they communicate. So I think learning these things about yourself and other people will help you, have clearer communication. For example, as a sibling, it is not always easy to communicate with your brothers and sisters and things of that sort. And I had that actually happen today where there's a situation with my sister. And instead of, typically I would communicate by being upset or yelling or, going down my list of, I need to be right. I need to prove her wrong. I need to get my point across and be heard. This time I was just silent. Now, I'm not saying ignore people in conflict, but sometimes you just have to say nothing before you can actually communicate clearly. And so that's something that I'm practicing. And in this particular situation, I just didn't say anything because I felt like if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. And I think this is helpful and healthy in situations where you just need to step back, take a breather, and kind of think through what you're going to say, especially when you are, communicating. And this has to do with a relationship with someone that you love and care about, because we don't want to just roll off the tongue and say things that are going to hurt somebody. You want to be able to just pause, think it through, because like I said, if something that's not nice or kind are going to hurt their feelings, you probably don't want to say anything at all until you and that person is ready. And so that's something that I've been learning as far as communication and all the relationships in my life, is just learning to take a step back, observe myself, my thoughts, and then take a step forward with a response and not a reaction. And so that was kind of my way of practicing that. And that's what works for me. Some people, they may need the opposite. They may shut down, not say anything at all, avoid communicating, avoid their emotions, and they may shut down and avoid it. So maybe they need to do the opposite. If you do that, maybe try speaking up and expressing yourself in a way that is helpful in your relationship and connection to others. Some ways that you could do this is writing. because a lot of times it's kind of hard to express how we feel or communicate. It doesn't have to be this huge, big conversation. It could be the simplest things that we're learning how to navigate, express, and communicate with other people. So a great way to do that is writing. I know I'm a big advocate for journaling, and I have my journal on my Etsy shop. Check it out. But truly writing, I found that for me, I enjoy communicating through writing, whether that's journaling, whether that's leaving a note, because it's a great way for me to process what I'm feeling and communicate clearly. So when it comes to communicating in relationships, that's something that you can try if you struggle with how to, find the right words or how to express yourself, or if you kind of, shut down at times. Try writing out your feelings. That's just something that I've found helpful when it comes to my relationships in my life, is communicating through writing. It takes time to do that. When you just say it, it's, right out of your mouth. But if you take the time to just be still, grab a pen or paper, or even like with texting, you can text and write out your feelings. You could write it in your notes or do a voice memo. But old school pen and paper, or pencil and paper, write it down, because that takes effort. That takes processing and time. And so I think that's truly important when it comes to communication. Sometimes you need to process and slow things down, especially if you're struggling with communication with other people and learning about yourself. So definitely try that out if you haven't already. Like I said, also, sometimes you need to pause, and if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. This doesn't always have to apply to something negative too. Communication can be giving somebody a compliment or just starting conversation and saying hi. I think I'm more looking at communication in relationships that you've already built, with people you already know. This can apply for, strangers and people that you're meeting, but most importantly, with the people that you already have connected with and built a relationship with, it takes time, it takes patience. And so trying to pause before you speak, watch what you say is going to be helpful. Taking the time to maybe write out your thoughts and how you feel and how you want to express yourself through journaling or through notes would be helpful as well. But really just being patient with yourself and the other person, whomever it is, and having this awareness, having the awareness about yourself and what works best for you in communication, as well as that other person. That is truly important, to take our time as we are building relationships with one another to learn how we communicate. I think a lot of times we can miscommunicate and misunderstand each other because we haven't learned about ourselves, let alone another person. Sometimes we don't take out the time to learn about how we should communicate or how we've been communicating, and kind of what areas we can work on and what areas we can try something new, or communicate in a healthier way. So if you haven't done that work within yourself, it may be a little tough when it comes to communicating with other people. Now, it is a practice and it takes growth. So I'm not saying you have to be perfect with communicating before you can build healthy relationships and connections with other people, but it is crucial to learn about yourself in that way. Whether it's friends, whether it's family, whether it's romantic, your husband, your wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whether it's your coworker, your boss, a business partner, whether it's just in the store when you're talking to people you don't know. It is very important to just take the time out to learn how you communicate, what works with you, what doesn't work. Maybe even reflect on conversations and interactions and relationships in the past with other people and how that communication has affected your life, what you can do differently so you can take steps forward in a new way and be clearer about how you express yourself. This can be personal within yourself, how you're learning about what's going on in your inner world, and then also when you're communicating with other people, because we're talking about communication in relationships. So yeah, it can be a trial and error, and I'm sure all of us have had our situations where it was just a bunch of miscommunications. And like I said, it takes patience and practice, but start with yourself. Start with, trying out some of these ways that I've kind of discussed in this video, if it's going to be helpful for you, and then test it out and see. Communication is key, but we also have to take the time to learn about ourselves and to have an understanding too. Because you can talk all the time. You can be talking to somebody and y'all could just be totally on two different accords, you know what I'm saying? And you're communicating, but it's not making sense, because there has to be an understanding too, you know? You have to get to know yourself and the other person, and that's what relationships are about. But it starts with you learning about yourself so you can have the capacity to learn about somebody else and to communicate with them better, because you're learning about yourself and doing the same things with them. So yeah, you'll learn from your experiences when you miscommunicate, or, you know, when you're like, man, I should have probably reworded that differently, or I should have took time before I spoke, or I should have spoke up sooner. That's another thing. Sometimes we're on two different sides, you know what I'm saying? And they both can be extreme, whether you're avoiding communication, whether you shut down, or you're talking a little bit too much. You know, if you're very chatty and you're not thinking before you speak, you probably need to take a step back. If you usually shut down and you don't say anything and you get quiet, you probably need to speak up. So just learning where you are in that range and finding that healthy balance. That's exactly what this season is about. It's finding that balance within. So learning about yourself, finding that balance within. Where do you lie on that scale? And what's healthy, what's not healthy, what's serving you, what's not? How is it affecting your relationships when looking at yourself? And then also looking at the people that you're connecting. I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to communication, is really pausing and reflecting. It's good to talk too, but sometimes we need to process, pause, and reflect before we can actually get the words out. So test that out, try that, and know that it is trial and error. We're all learning. So just be patient with yourself. And yeah, definitely speak to the people that you are connecting with and have these relationships with. Open your mouth, use your words, do whatever it takes to go about things in a more aligned and healthier way. It may not always come out that way, and that's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Like I said, trial and error. But if these connections and relationships with other people are super important to you, no matter what environment it's taking place, no matter with whom, you know, figure out what works for you and works in that connection. It's a process. It's a journey. But you got this. That is pretty much all I have for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. And like I said, don't forget to subscribe to YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, follow, check out my TikTok and my Etsy shop. We are talking about communication and relationships. If you need help with that, Guided Mind, I think, is a perfect journal for you to self-reflect, learn about yourself, and express yourself through writing. And before I go, remember, it is not about perfection, but committing to expansion. Let me know what you think in the comments, like this video, share, and I'll see you next time. Have a transformed perspective.